Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, air, restoration, and flood services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit BillHowe.com. And by the Conrad Trebas Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. By viewers like you. Thank you.
Protests against immigration and customs enforcement are continuing across the country and here in San Diego County. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi, and right now, people have gathered to speak out against tactics used by ICE and Border Patrol. Oceanside, where the protest is underway. Jacob, paint the picture for us. What's it like out there?
Hi, Maya. There are a few hundred protesters here outside the Oceanside Civic Center. Their message, end ICE violence and deportations. They're here tonight responding to what protesters say is escalating violence from federal immigration officers, including the killings of Renee Good and Alex Preddy in Minneapolis. Earlier today, I spoke with Larry Warner. He's one of the protest organizers.
What we saw in both of those was immediately the administration vilifies the victim, justifies the actions, and yet as we watch the videos, they don't go together. And so there's been this ongoing lack of accountability and transparency with the actions of ICE.
Warner says there's been a lot of community fear and anger over ICE enforcement across the country, but he says there is a bit of hope that things could change. He points to the news that 2 officers involved in Alex Preddy's shooting have been put on administrative leave, and Border Patrol Commander Gregory Bavino is no longer leading enforcement efforts in Minnesota. Later tonight in Escondido, a similar event is taking place. A candlelight vigil will be in front of Escondido City Hall. Reporting live from Oceanside, Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
And meanwhile, the county board says it will not allow ICE agents to access non-public county spaces without a judicial warrant. Supervisors approved the Civil Liberties Enforcement and Accountability Rules, or CLEAR, ordinance. The ordinance will also require an annual report of Department of Homeland Security activity. The final vote was 3-1, with Supervisor Jim Desmond opposing.
And I believe that after months of work, amendments, and extensive community dialogue, we're taking this final vote on the CLEAR ordinance, a concrete, lawful action to protect people who rely on county services every day.
And that's what Minnesotans and San Diegans deserve going forward. Law enforcement agencies working together. So I'm going to be registering a no vote at item 9. I feel this is a divisive and restrictive and not collaborative, so I'll be registering a no vote.
The county will also post multilingual signage at its properties to inform the public of their rights. The CLEAR ordinance will take effect in 30 days. You may remember we reported on a surfer who was detained by ICE after he accidentally wandered onto a Camp Pendleton beach. In just a few minutes, we hear more about his experience upon his release 4 months later.
Although we may be dealing with some cool nights, we have a warming trend that's going to take us well above the historical average. It's going to be a very warm, unseasonably warm Friday coming up, and Thursday's kind of in transition to that. But tonight, we're on the road down to 40 at Escondido and Ramona. Cool weather at night, 48 into San Diego, a little nippier to the east into Mount Laguna. A quick preview of the weekend forecast. Dry weather continues with storm tracks directing all the western rain way to the north as cold holds in the east. Your local forecast is coming up.
Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell laid out the reasons behind the central bank's first decision on interest rates in 2026. Karen Kaifa is in Washington with that decision and what Powell had to say about the outlook for the U.S. economy.
There's a lot going on around the Federal Reserve right now, from Chairman Jerome Powell under criminal investigation by the Trump Department of Justice to Powell's assertion that investigation amounts to bullying of the central bank and the president's impending decision on Powell's replacement. But the Fed staying steady, at least when it comes to interest rates. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell on the central bank's first interest rate decision of 2026.
In support of our goals, today the Federal Open Market Committee decided to leave our policy rate unchanged.
The Federal Reserve taking its time bringing interest rates down and seeing little urgency, with government data pointing to slower job growth but a relatively low unemployment rate and inflation ebbing, even as consumer sentiment numbers point to Americans being in a sour economic mood.
Inflation data has been looking a little bit better and trending in the right direction. And then you have these consumer sentiment numbers really falling off a cliff, indicating that consumers are really worried about their jobs right now.
President Donald Trump sharply critical of Powell, insisting lower interest rates would spur greater economic growth by encouraging consumers and businesses to borrow and buy, spend, and hire.
I'd like to see interest rates go down. Everything else is going down. We have the energy and fuel going down.
The central bank did cut rates 3 times last year as it monitored the economic effects of Trump's policies, especially his broad global tariff plan. And amid the many concerns about the labor market, the Federal Reserve signaling a more upbeat tone about the state of the U.S. labor market. And for all of the talk about consumer sentiment slipping, Powell said that consumer spending has remained resilient. In Washington, I'm Karen Kafa.
A proposal to tax empty second homes and short-term rentals in San Diego failed to move forward today. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says the tax would have appeared on the June ballot.
The tax would have applied to homes that are vacant for most of the year, as well as homes that are rented short-term on platforms like Airbnb. Both kinds of homes would have been taxed at $8,000 per year, with an additional $4,000 for properties owned by corporations. Before the meeting, opponents of the tax rallied outside City Hall, saying it would hurt the local tourism economy and San Diegans who rely on short-term rentals to get by.
I've met teachers, single parents, retirees, and longtime residents who use hosting income to pay mortgages, cover medical bills, help their kids with education, pay for parking at Balboa Park, or simply stay in San Diego. These are not faceless operators. These are neighbors. And this proposal would put many of them in an impossible position.
The city's Office of the Independent Budget Analyst estimated the empty second home tax could bring in $17 to $27 million in new revenue. But it found revenue from taxing short-term rentals was less certain. If owners were to stop renting short-term, the city could see a drop in transient occupancy tax revenues. If owners were to sell their homes to avoid the tax, that could result in higher property tax revenues. Councilmember Sean Ela Rivera proposed the tax measure and urged his colleagues to support it.
I will not for a second say that this will solve San Diego's housing affordability issue, but I am trying to maintain some consistency in saying that every time we build a home, we are helping make the problem a little less bad, and doing what we can to try to make it better. And the same applies to a home that is turned from an empty home or short-term vacation rental into a home for a San Diegan.
As the council's Rules Committee deliberated, it became clear the tax measure did not have enough support to move forward. Ela Rivera made a last-minute amendment in an effort to save it, but the committee voted 3-2 to reject the tax measure, meaning the idea is dead for now. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Another day, another effort to repeal parking fees at Balboa Park. Today, the City Council will once again take up a proposal to bring back free parking on Sundays. But unlike yesterday's proposal, this ordinance would not be up to the council, but to the voters. It's one of the several proposals to repeal the fees, including one by City Council President Joe LaCava to scrap paid parking for residents altogether.
Our intent here is to alleviate frustration from the community that I think we understand where it's coming from.
The ordinance still has a long way to go before final approval. If it clears all those hurdles, it could be placed on the ballot for June's primary election. A new scholarship program in San Diego County is training more frontline healthcare workers. KPBS health reporter Heidi DeMarco says San Diego is facing a growing healthcare staffing shortage.
Suleiman Abubakar began training for a medical career as a refugee in Uganda.
I wanted to become a doctor, and in Uganda, I was able to do a certificate in nursing.
In 2023, he immigrated to the United States. Now he's enrolled in the Laura Rodriguez Medical Assistant Institute at Family Health Centers of San Diego. An $80,000 investment from Blue Shield is covering tuition, books, and uniforms for 10 students at the institute this year. Abubakar says he would not have been able to afford the program without it.
So I feel like all these scholarships and these programs that come up to help people, most of the immigrants and then the underserved people, is really helpful to them, because sometimes you don't have the money that needs to fulfill all this.
A report from the San Diego Workforce Partnership found medical assistants are among the most in-demand healthcare jobs in the region. The positions are part of a shortage of healthcare workers that's growing.
It's going to be significant, and we're all going to feel it as patients. So one of the things that we can do is continue training up.
Meredith Johnston manages development for the Family Health Centers. She says entry-level jobs like medical assistants are one of the fastest ways to expand the workforce.
It's such a great pathway as a first step into a career in healthcare. Some go on to be licensed vocational nurses and nurse practitioners.
Medical assistant programs typically take less than a year. She says they allow students to quickly enter clinics and relieve pressure on doctors and nurses, especially in underserved communities.
We hire from our communities, and a lot of them don't have significant wealth and means to pay, large tuitions for trainings.
Abubakar says he hopes to work at Family Health Centers of San Diego after graduation.
After finishing the program, I'm hoping I'll be getting $26, which I feel like it's a good amount and a good start for somebody who is just joining the health sector.
Johnson says scholarships like this help train workers from the communities most affected by the shortage. Heidi DeMarco, KPBS News.
I'm Jeff Bennett. Tonight on the NewsHour, the FBI carries out a raid in Georgia related to an investigation into the 2020 election that President Trump lost. That's at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Tensions in Minneapolis escalating even more as Representative Ilhan Omar is attacked at a town hall. This as President Trump sends his border czar to the city to try and de-escalate following the fatal shooting of Alex Preddy by federal agents. Brian Abel reports.
Secretary Kristi Noem must resign or face impeachment.
Congresswoman Ilhan Omar Tuesday attacked in Minneapolis when someone at her town hall sprayed an unknown substance on her before being tackled to the ground. Omar continuing the event after.
We are Minnesota strong, and we will stay resilient in the face of whatever they might throw at us.
The attack happening as the city of Minneapolis continues grappling with the fatal shootings of Alex Preddy and Renee Good by federal agents. President Donald Trump making an immigration enforcement leadership change for the Minnesota operation, while Democrats threaten to withhold key funding votes. And some in the president's own party begin to criticize DHS's handling of the crisis in Minnesota under Secretary Kristi Noem's leadership.
She's got to make her own decision, or the president does, but she has taken this administration into the ground on an issue that we should own.
Trump continues to defend Noem, but out Border Patrol Commander-at-Large Greg Bovino, in Border Czar Tom Homan. President Trump telling Fox News the move is to turn the temperature down.
We have Tom Homan there now. We put him in there. He's great. And they met with the governor, the mayor, everybody else, and we're going to de-escalate a little bit.
The man accused of assaulting Omar, 55-year-old Anthony Kazmierczak. Lawmakers and local officials condemning political violence after the attack. In Washington, Brian Abel, KPBS News.
An immigrant surfer who was detained by ICE after accidentally wandering onto Camp Pendleton Beach has been released. KPBS reporter Gustavo Solis says a federal judge ruled that ICE violated the man's constitutional rights by detaining him indefinitely.
Hagop Karinian spent 4 months in the Otay Mesa Detention Center. ICE agents arrested him in August after he accidentally wandered onto the Camp Pendleton Beach during a surf trip. A few days after Christmas, a federal judge ordered ICE to release Karinian. The judge said ICE had violated his due process rights. Karinian says life in the detention center was depressing. terrible food, men constantly crying, and lack of sunlight.
It's hard to get sun. I mean, the only outside you see is maybe about a 30-foot, 50-foot by 50-foot square area.
His girlfriend, Tambra Sanders Kirk, visited him as often as she could, and she noticed the physical toll of detention.
Because he looked really pale when he was in there.
One thing that kept him motivated throughout this ordeal was the thought of eventually reuniting with his dogs.
That's one thing I want to see so bad is my dogs, you know. I miss them so much, especially Pepper. I knew she'd go crazy when she see me, yeah.
And although he's now free, Sanders Kirk says that Karanian is still trying to put his life back together.
When he came home, he didn't have his work permit. They didn't give it back to him. They didn't give him his driver's license back. So he had to go. He still doesn't have the work permit, but he's got a temporary license finally.
Court records show that Karanian was born in Lebanon and came to the U.S. as a 5-year-old in 1975. After 2 nonviolent drug convictions in the 1990s, ICE placed him under something called an order of supervision. That order requires Karanian to check in with ICE on a regular basis and avoid getting in trouble with the law. He has never missed a check-in. The federal judge said that ICE violated its own rules. Immigrants under orders of supervision cannot be detained without a written notice or a formal hearing. Karanian got neither. ICE did not respond to questions about this case. Sanders Kirk says it is wrong for the government to target immigrants who follow the rules.
Those people are doing the right thing. They're going the right procedure, and they're taking them in to detain them. That's not right. You tell them to do it the right way, they're doing it the right way.
The couple has mixed feelings about their ordeal. Sanders Kirk says the country is headed in the wrong direction.
I'm embarrassed to say I'm from the U.S.
But Karanian still has hope.
Overall, it's the best place to live. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else, actually.
It may be, but with our president right now, the things he's doing.
Well, maybe right.
After Karanian spoke to KPBS, ICE informed him that he would have to wear a GPS ankle monitor indefinitely. And he's now subject to 2 check-ins with ICE every month. He is one of 13,000 immigrants who have filed federal lawsuits claiming the Trump administration illegally detained them. It's unclear exactly how many are still in detention. Gustavo Solis, KPBS News.
The Museum of Contemporary Art San Diego's director will step down this week after nearly a decade. KPBS arts reporter Julia Dixon-Evans spoke with her about her career in San Diego.
Catherine Canjo became director and CEO of the Museum of Contemporary Art San Diego, the first woman to hold the role, in 2016, just as the museum was entering a major transformation.
Certainly the largest sort of challenge, which in turn had the greatest reward, was the expansion.
That expansion was a $105 million project that shuttered the La Jolla campus for 5 years.
And to go from being so quiet, from not really having had a public presence for the years of construction, to then suddenly seeing the lines of people going down Prospect waiting to come in when we finally opened the building.
Canjo also had a front row seat to what she saw as an evolution in the San Diego art scene as a whole, one rooted in the universities.
This is an incubator for new artists, and it's also a way to hold practicing artists by employing them.
And artist-led spaces.
I also have been just dazzled by the changes that have happened at Bread and Salt. So that's just been an amazing, I think, activation of a historical building and creating kind of partnerships on their own terms.
She's been at the helm as the museum discovered artists and also lost some.
Robert Irwin is this seminal, what we'd call light and space artist who challenges what an artwork is and sort of makes us realize it's about us tuning in and it's about perception.
But for Canjo, the idea of being a museum of and for a place and time hinged on the moment it reopened after construction.
I had the great privilege of unfurling a collection that had been shaped over 50 years, not just by me, but by preceding directors and curators and donors.
The museum has begun a national search for a new CEO. Kanjo's next role is director of the UC Irvine Langston Orange County Museum of Art. Julia Dixon-Evans, KPBS News.
And Julia is also the host of the KPBS Arts and Culture podcast, and it's called The Finest. It just kicks off a second season. You can listen now at kpbs.org/thefinest or wherever you get your podcasts. San Diego County leaders today approved using nearly $9 million in reserve funds for new Tijuana River sewage fixes. The money will help pay for long-term public health studies, a pipeline study to mitigate airborne pollution, and more air purifiers for residents. Supervisor Jim Desmond voted against using reserves for more studies, but Supervisor Paloma Aguirre says data-driven research has been missing.
But we can't continue to bury our head in the sand and not explore specific data collection that has to do with what are the chronic long-term health effects.
The supervisors also agreed to create a pollution crisis chief position to coordinate the county's response.
We have a warming trend. Despite some cool nights, temperatures during the day warming up in a significant way over the next few days. Warmer and warmer into Friday. In fact, Friday is going to be unseasonably warm. There might be one or two spots up into the LA basin where we might even see a near record high, maybe near some spots not far from Los Angeles. But we do stay dry. The storm track stays well to the north. So tonight, clearing skies, 48 degrees in the city, and kind of an uneventful local forecast here for us, aside from the warmth building. So dry, but warmer and warmer. And as we take a look at the highs on Thursday, 80 in Ramona, 80 in Escondido. This is warm for this time of the year for mid to late January. It is late January now. El Cajon, 83. Borrego Springs making a run to 76. We'll be around 75 in San Diego. Unseasonably warm as the heat, if you want to call it that, reaches its pinnacle here on Friday. The apex of the warm-up, staying dry and warm on Saturday, though the temperatures may back off just a little smidge. And the weekend forecast, again, big contrast here between the ridge in the west, the trough in the east, very cold, record cold in Florida. We've got snow. In fact, our forecast here for places like Charlotte, North Carolina, looking at 3 to 6 inches of snow. Looking at Raleigh, 6 to 10 inches in Raleigh, North Carolina. Southern snow. It'll bring some significant wind and snow to the coast of parts of the northeast, mid-Atlantic. But for us locally, it just stays warm and dry. Nice weather here for us. So in San Diego, you can see a good deal of sunshine. Upper 70s Friday and Saturday. Temps do back off a bit into Sunday and Monday, but still not a bad time at all. Looking into the inland areas here, we're going to be rising up to 84 Friday and Saturday. For January, we can call it hot. We may not call this hot if we had the same weather in June, but it's very warm out there. And then into the mountainous areas here, we're rising into the mid-50s, a good deal of sunshine. No rain around here, even in the mountains. We're staying dry. And the deserts making a run into the upper 70s. Here, the heat will be a little more persistent into Sunday as well, when we could reach 80 degrees for the high. So not a bad forecast, running a little warm for late January. I'm AccuWeather meteorologist Jeff Cornish for KPBS News.
A San Diego Superior Court judge issued a partial decision this week in a lawsuit filed by animal rights groups against organizers of the San Diego Rodeo. Judge Joel Wolfile wrote in his decision that more can be done to minimize suffering and cruelty to the animals. The court found the animal rights groups failed to prove rodeo events, including calf roping, cause unnecessary cruelty. But the judge held rodeo organizers responsible for verifying that no pregnant horses compete in the event. In 2025, a pregnant horse crashed into a fence at the rodeo and later died. The judge also directed the rodeo to provide veterinary care on site. After 2 recent deaths at the hands of federal agents, there are rising concerns ICE will make good on a promise to show up at the Super Bowl. As Tim Johns reports, local officials say they are doing everything they can to ensure everyone's safety.
As a matter of practice, we do not confirm, deny, or speculate about the presence or activities of other agencies.
Santa Clara Police Chief Corey Morgan addressing the community Tuesday amid fears over potential immigration enforcement at the Super Bowl. Months ago, the Trump administration said ICE agents would be on the ground during the big game. But But San Jose's mayor says as of Tuesday, they have not heard of such a plan. Mayor Matt Mahan writing in a statement, the city was informed by a federal agency that they have no indication a surge in immigration enforcement will happen during the Super Bowl in San Jose. City and county leaders have been preparing anyway.
We've introduced policies like ICE-free zones, which will allow the city of San Jose to sue the federal government to ban them from accessing and commandeering open public lands.
Otto Lee, the president of the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors, also questions what agents would do in Santa Clara. He says the board has spent countless hours preparing for the big game, working to ensure everybody's safety.
ICE, you could come, but you're not going to find much here.
Even if nothing materializes, some local leaders say the fear that's being installed in many communities will be hard to erase. And they want those folks to know South Bay officials have their back.
This isn't immigration enforcement. Look, Barack Obama deported many people. Biden deported many people. They didn't have to do this level of terror.
The Super Bowl will take place at Levi Stadium on February 8th.
Well, here is a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On NPR's Morning Edition, lawyers in Minnesota say ICE is detaining families with children and whisking them off to a Texas detention facility. And KPBS Midday Edition is highlighting San Diego's art scene with the weekend preview. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. From all of us here at KPBS, thanks for joining us.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, air, restoration, and flood services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit BillHowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.